This is a moment in history which will be recorded, and it will be the moment that our Earth history, the history of mankind, changed. Probably this is the inception of maybe the most important event since the birth and death of Jesus Christ, I'm guessing. And because the ramifications of this are almost currently unfathomable as to what this is. So I've entitled this talk, Disclosure Has Begun. I'm by background a scientist, so I'm not really given to sensational exaggeration, although some scientists do. But this is something that is really quite momentous, and you are living in the middle of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe and explain to you the term disclosure for the purposes of this talk. Disclosure is the public disclosure of the presence of what we could call non-Earth, but I'm going to call extraterrestrial intelligence, ETI, by credible authorities. Now, this disclosure, if you will, has obviously been going on for thousands of years, but having it as something from credible authorities that's in the public consciousness literally has occurred in the last few days. I've been involved in looking at these issues for about 10 years. I'm very familiar with a number of different ideas that are presented, and the reason I've been very interested in this is because this will have an overwhelming effect on all of our lives. When I say disclosure, I'm not talking about two things which are often described as disclosure, but for the purposes of our discussion tonight, it's not disclosure. One of them is this idea of so-called exobiology. Someone from NASA will come along and say, oh, we discovered bacteria on Mars, okay? That's not what this is about. We could not consider bacteria to be an intelligent being. It's a being, of course, but not an intelligent being. And this is also not about ancient alien artifacts. We know famously Buzz Aldrin on C-SPAN made the statement, hey, let's all go to the moon of Mars. There's a monolith there. The idea of disclosure of the presence of ancient alien presence, non-Earth humans, has been around in shows like Ancient Aliens and others. But the idea is, if it was that kind of disclosure, and this is important, if it was that kind of disclosure, then our conversation would be quite different, because they would be able to say, oh yeah, there was this intelligent species not from Earth that were in our solar system. They built these civilizations, they left these artifacts, whatever they did. But, however, they're all gone and there's no one around. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that these beings are present. I've given 3 presentations. This is the 3rd one. I'm going to be basing this presentation on the other 3 ones, but don't worry. I'm going to give a review of the pertinent information so that you're aware of this. On May the 1st, we had another momentous occasion because on April 27th, the United States Navy released this proof, this verification of certain videos that were released earlier a few years ago. We'll talk about that. On June 21st, they gave a State of the World talk. This one is the roundup for all of them, and I would say arguably is the most important, and that is that what I'm calling disclosure has begun, and it began on July the 23rd. Okay, so on April 27th, the United States Navy acknowledged that 2 of their battle groups, one is the USS Nimitz in the Pacific Theater, and the USS Theodore Roosevelt in the Atlantic Theater, had encountered vehicles, we can't say extraterrestrial, and they were recorded on the gun cameras of the F-18 Hornets that were scrambled to track these things. The other thing that's important is that these aircraft carrier groups had some of the most advanced sensory equipment in the entire fleet. And on April 27th, the U.S. Navy acknowledged that these videos were real. The videos show some of the craft flying at speeds of up to or over 48,000 miles per hour. There was no fumes coming out of it, so there was no exhaust, no turbine nacelles, there was no wings, no apparent steering, and yet it was doing these incredible maneuvers. So around the world, people acknowledged that for the first time, the U.S. Navy came out and said, yes, these are real. We don't know where they came from. And also, they went around and started doing the media circuit, particularly the New York Times, and the pilots came on and were allowed to give a description of what they encountered and some of the things that they saw. So that was a groundbreaking historic reveal, not so much for the fact that it was UFOs, but because they had admitted that they were the ones who produced the videos, and the videos were bona fide, and they were recording craft that don't look or act like anything that is in the U.S. Navy fleet. The other thing that was important about that is that the original videos were given to a group called To the Stars Academy. Now, don't be surprised if you've never heard of them, but you're about to hear about them a lot, because they are the disclosers, and they're the ones that the government has chosen to disclose through. So it was the To the Stars Academy where got the videos, and they're the ones who released the information that was verified on April 27th. So as a review of who To the Stars Academy is, first of all, the co-founder and chairman of the board is someone named Tom DeLonge. And of course, Tom DeLonge, for those who know things about music of the 90s, was the head of a band called Blink-182. And he has been interested in the UFO phenomenon for some time. But the co-founder is the guy we're going to be focusing on today. His name is Dr. Hal Puthoff. And people who are aware of Hal Puthoff are aware he is one of the leading world foremost physicists in a lot of things concerning military issues. He was the head of the Stanford Research Institute, work that was done in the 70s on behalf of the CIA, worked with the National Security Agency, and until recently was based in Austin, Texas, of all places. But he's a very well-known physicist, and he's also very well known in the military community. Now, if you look at the board members, it's like a who's who of the top levels of military intelligence. You've got Jim Semivan, who was the operations officer for the CIA for quite a number of years. You've got Steve Justice, who was the chief operating officer for the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, which is the foremost developer of aerospace technology in the world. He is their COO. Kerry DeLonge helps out. I'm not sure if he's his sister or wife. Another guy that you're going to run into in this discussion is a guy named Luis Elizondo, and he is famously with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. He is a career military intelligence officer. And I want you to note at the bottom the particular background that he's got, which is that he was a manager. It turns out he's actually the director for the Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. So he's a very important player in this overall process. When you look at the advisory board, you have Chris Mellon of Carnegie Mellon fame. who was 20 years in the federal government under Clinton and Bush. Chris Herndon, who is the director of White House Information Technology. You got Norm Kahn, who is a recipient of the CIA's Distinguished Career Intelligence Medal and is 30 years in the CIA with 12 years in the CIA's counterintelligence biological weapons. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is these are very serious people who are on a website, and as far as you could tell, all they do is produce music and coffee cups and, you know, maybe posters, blacklight posters or something. As far as we can tell, we have no idea what they do. They offered shares in their company, but you don't really have any idea what they are. But they are the people who released the videos of these UFOs. On on July 25th, there was an anticipated release that was supposed to come out from the New York Times that was a follow-up to this UFO release. And these are two pictures of these UFOs that go back further into the year 2000. And they were going to reveal that they had in their possession off-world vehicles. And that's the headline in Popular Mechanics. The Huffington Post had a similar headline. It said Pentagon has off-world vehicles not made on this earth, and it's a quote from the article on the New York Times. So once again, we find that the To the Stars Academy is in the middle of this, and we also find that the New York Times are the ones that are breaking the story. This is a screenshot of the actual story itself, and this is the date that you can note in your calendar as to when the world changed. It was July the 23rd, 2020. And the title is No Longer in Shadows, Pentagon's UFO unit will make some findings public. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. This is a capture from this particular article, and if the guy in the picture looks familiar, that's Luis Elizondo, and once again, he's in the middle of it, right? So he's from To the Stars Academy. It says in the article that there was a unit that was called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, which of course he ran, which was funded, and it fell under the auspices of the Office of Naval Intelligence. This is the U.S. Navy, of course. And they believed that the program was lapsed, but it never was, and this guy ran it. And he just happens to be this guy right here, who's now To the Stars Academy, and that's what he's doing now. And so he's the guy that they interviewed on this particular issue. So what he says is that this unit has decided that they're not going to hide in the shadows anymore, and there's going to be a new transparency, and they're going to start showing some of the stuff that they've got. What they brought out is a guy in the New York Times article, a guy named Eric Davis, and he was left to launch the bombshell. He's a so-called astrophysicist. He's much more than that. And he was someone who briefed various parts of the Pentagon and described that the materials and things that he was privy to, he said we couldn't make it ourselves. And here's the thing that everyone's quoting. Mr. Davis, who now works for Aerospace Corporation, a defense contractor, said he gave a classified briefing to a defense Department agency as early as March about retrievals from off-world vehicles not made on this earth. So there we go. That is the announcement that is going to be followed up, and that is going to change our world completely. Because this disclosure that they've been taking vehicles that are not from this world and reverse engineering them and using them and whatever, that has been well known. Now they are officially coming out through the New York Times and others and they're going to start describing what they're doing. And he did a briefing on this as early as March. Now, he very carefully chooses his words. We're going to find out that this is a very heavy hitter guy by saying it's an off-world vehicle. It's not an off-world material. It's a technology that is coming from not from this planet. And obviously, since it's something they've recovered, it is something from a off-world or extraterrestrial intelligence that is present and in the near term or in our recent history, which means these are live, living, intelligent beings that have these vehicles that they retrieved. Mr. Davis also gave classified briefings of these objects to staff members of the Senate Armed Services Committee and later on the Senate Intelligence Committee. And that's where you might have heard there's Mark Rubio's going along saying we have to assess this. This is obviously where this came in. But we have to understand, and I'm sure we do, this is a setup. They've been setting this up for quite a long time, and they decided to pull the trigger on July the 23rd. Now, this is from a website called Earth Tech International. It's based in Austin, Texas. And until recently, Eric Davis was an employee. He was the senior science advisor. And you'll notice here in a paper, it's got Davis and a guy named Hal Puthoff. And sure enough, Hal Puthoff is the CEO of the company he worked for. So, does he look familiar? Let's go back. There he is, Hal Puthoff, who just happens to be the co-founder of To the Stars Academy. Are you starting to see all the connections here? Does that make sense to everyone? So this is not some random act. This is a deliberate, planned activity by military intelligence to release to us by this process called disclosure that there are extraterrestrial intelligent beings who have produced these vehicles. They have this technology, and they are going to start talking to us about what this is. Coincidentally, Tom DeLonge, the CEO of this organization, tweeted yesterday that they are going to give their first demonstration of a technology, so they're not just making coffee cups, the technology they've been experimenting with, according to him, called anti-gravitic. Anti-gravitic is the removal of the effect of gravity, which allows things to float. So in theory, you could float a chair, or you could float a building or a battleship or something bigger using these devices. So the whole idea of things that are heavy or have weight, that all goes out the door. So they're going to release this, and you can see where this is going. They're going to show you that over the years, they've taken from this unit things that have come from off-world. Clearly, it's going to indicate that we have intelligent species that have left their stuff here, that these military units have used this and have incorporated this into their understanding of technology, which allows all of this to occur. So there is a man who was with the U.S. Navy called Salvatore Cesar Pais, who's an engineer and a physicist, who was recently with the U.S. Navy in Patuxent River, and now he's in Washington, and he's part of the Strategic Systems Program, and he released some patents. Now, what's extremely interesting about these patents is that all of the patents that he's releasing were all released over a period of essentially 2 years. There's about 11 of them, and they are mind-blowing, economy-changing completely will change our economy and the world type, based on physics that is currently not known. And these patents were released. You can go to the U.S. Patent site on Google. You can type in his name. You can type in either Salvatore Pais or Salvatore Cesar Pais, and you'll pull up all of his patents. And they're available to anyone, and anyone can build technology. If we were to take the top 10 nuclear plants in the world and add up the gross energy capacity in megawatts of each one of them, they would be 68.8 gigawatts. The device that he describes in his patent, 2019-029-5733, it's quite specific, was described by Cohen in a Forbes article, October 30th of last year. The device is between 0.3 to 2 meters in diameter, and it will produce up to a gigawatt of power. In other words, it produces terawatts. It produces more power by far than all of the nuclear power plants in the world combined. And this thing is somewhere between 1/3 of a meter to 2 meters. Now, where this draws its energy from is it draws it from the air or from space. It comes out of nowhere using a process called fusion, which is also a very clean form of energy. So let's go back a little bit and let's look at the paper that was written by Hal Puthoff and what his thing is: extracting energy from the quantum vacuum. So obviously, this is all a setup. They've been planning this for a very long time, and they're now choosing this moment to release this. There's also another paper, another patent, which we talked about before, which is an inertial mass reduction, which basically takes any mass and reduces it to as low as you want, which could be essentially zero. So you can take anything, a chair, a house, you've just reduced the mass and it'll like float, and it doesn't have any mass. He reported this in a paper he presented at the International Journal of Space Science and Engineering, which is part of a process for developing what is called superluminal craft, which means it goes faster than the speed of light, which it's going to go manifold times faster than the speed of light. The idea is that as you approach the speed of light, the mass of the object increases. And so in theory, according to Einstein's theory, you couldn't do this. So that you kick this device in, it reduces the mass of the vehicle and allows you to propel it to faster speeds than the speed of light. These are, according to the US Navy, operational technologies. The one that is concerning what we have seen that's being released here from To the Stars Academy is a high-frequency gravitational wave generator, which is also described in one of his patents, 2018-0229-864. And this particular device allows the gravitational force field to be created around the vehicle by curving the space-time fabric, as it says, and allows this craft to be propelled around the cosmos at extraordinary speeds, the anti-gravitic device. Okay, so what do we know? What we know is that they are officially from credible sources, they're about as credible as they get, is that the US government has in their possessions as proof, and they're going to roll this out, off-world vehicles that they have gotten that have technologies that are far in excess than anything that we're able to do. And they're about to tell us that these were made by beings not of this world, or what we would call extraterrestrial intelligence. The agency has kept the these vehicles in the shadows until now. People who are familiar with this are very familiar with what this means. So before July 23rd, we didn't know what the true purpose of this unit was, and now we do. It's the extraction of these technologies. We can reasonably say that the reverse engineering of this ETI technology has been ongoing for some time. We're going to find out it's been quite a long time. The To the Stars Academy people and their associates, who are all high-level people in the government, in military intelligence, and in military science, are directly or indirectly involved, and that Salvatore Pais' inventions, which are you can download yourself if you wish, are operational, and they're obviously based on this effort of reverse engineering, so that everyone's going to know that the U.S. military already has this capability. Okay, so I'm going to make this very powerful statement. If you do not now understand that the disclosure of ETIs has already happened, I will say it. It has. It has. Your world is now changed. Everything in your world is about to change. You are going to be part of a galactic neighborhood, and you are going to be made aware in very powerful terms that you are not alone, and that there are intelligent species who have been, as we'll discover, been working with our governments for quite a long time, and we certainly have their level of technology, but this has been hidden from us, and now they're disclosing it. Why did they choose to do it July the 23rd, 2020? I have no idea. We've been anticipating it. We knew they were going to do this, but we are now living in a different world, my friends, and we're all going to have to adjust to the idea that Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter don't matter. Let me repeat that. Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, they're not going to matter anymore. This realization and what's about to happen is going to overwhelm all of that, because this is going to become the focus of your lifetime, your children's lifetime, and if you have them, your grandchildren's lifetime. This is the thing that everyone's going to remember in history. They're not going to remember a bunch of people breaking some windows and setting cars on fire, frankly. So like I said, I don't know why they've decided to do it right now. I just don't. But this disclosure has been planned. Some people thought they were going to do it a lot more gentle than this. This leaves them with no choice but to identify the idea that there are intelligence that produced objects, and they have the objects in their possession. The technology in them is way beyond what we currently possess, and that they've been taking this technology and using it for a variety of purposes. Okay, what I want to do now is I want to completely shift the discussion, because everyone that's here in our discussion is a spiritual person, all of us, everyone here. And this is a paper that was done in 2011 by a guy named Ted Peters at the Pacific Lutheran Theological Seminary, which I believe is associated with the University of California at Berkeley. This paper was published in the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society. Anyone who is involved with anything in philosophy or in science knows that this is one of the premier publications in the world, and has been for a long time. So this is a very serious paper. It's called The Implications of the Discovery of Extraterrestrial Life for Religion. So this is for you. This is for you. This is for us. This is where we are. And this is what you need to think about. What would be the impact on religious belief systems should we Earthlings wake up one morning and find ourselves keeping company with extraterrestrial neighbors? What challenges to existing religious beliefs might be raised? They did a survey, and of course, this is a scientific survey, so it's obviously very well done, where they surveyed Catholics, evangelical Protestants, um, Protestants MI, I'm not sure what that is, Orthodox, Jews, they had Mormons, they had Jews, Buddhists, and so on. And what they found is that between 83 to 94% of those surveyed said that the revelation, if they were to wake up, and by the way, it's now July 23rd, we're now waking up, it would not affect their religious beliefs. In summary, such survey evidence requires us to acknowledge that religious believers themselves do not fear that contact with extraterrestrial intelligence will undercut their beliefs or precipitate a religious crisis. So let's talk about the God of the Bible who calls himself Yahweh. And let's look at the biblical program the way that the Bible describes it. The biblical Israelites thought that their God, Yahweh, was just their God, and they wondered whether he was the God of Gentiles, and they found out in Exodus that he was, because he interacted with the Egyptians. The prophets later on showed that the God of Israel ruled over all of the nations of the planet, and that would be the Egyptians and the Assyrians and all the rest of them, the Babylonians, and he was their God as well. It makes clear in the prophets that he is the God of the entire universe. So folks, does it make sense that the God of the Bible, Yahweh, would be the God of these extraterrestrial intelligent beings as well? And we posit the question, is the God of ancient Israel the creator of our 13.7 billion year old cosmos? I forecast the answer will be yes. So, coincidentally, under a pen name named Jürgen Burgess, 2 books were produced earlier this year that talk about, in a very, what we would call biblical fashion, how the salvation of the non-Earth beings, the extraterrestrial intelligences, will occur, and how the God of the Bible considers him to be his children, that he loves them, and that he will embrace him in fellowship along with us, as we Gentiles have been embraced by him, along with his people, the Israelites. So that is my story.